On today's episode, you'll hear from a man who built a train in his basement and a business empire out of pure passion. This is the Be a Marketer podcast.
Be a Marketer.
My name is Dave Charest, Director of Small Business Success at Constant Contact, and I help small business owners like you make sense of online marketing. And on this podcast, we'll explore what it really takes to market your business, even if marketing's not your thing. No jargon, no hype, just real stories to inspire you and practical advice you can act on. So remember, friend, you can be a marketer. And at Constant Contact, we're here to help. Well, hello, friend, and thanks for joining us for another episode of the Be a Marketer podcast. And riding shotgun today is the always awesome Kelsey Carter. Hi, Kelsey.
Hi, Dave. You're always awesome, too.
Aw, thank you. I'll take it. That's it. Show's over. There it is, folks. So listen, our guest today talks a lot about how honesty and fun are core to their brand. And Kelsey, I'm wondering from you, have you ever seen a business kind of lean into transparency the way our guest does today? And if you have or you haven't, do you think more businesses should?
I think maybe a company that stands out to me is Chewy. I don't know if you've ever ordered for your cats or anything like that, but I feel like they're very transparent in how they run things. Their customer service is amazing, and you can just tell that they're really just passionate about the people they're serving in general. Like when a pet passes away, they send something to the parents and stuff like that if they're a subscriber. So I think it's just really you can tell that they're passionate and really care about what they're doing.
Yeah. I think it's also, it really connects with people on a different level when you know that the business that you're interacting with is kind of, I guess, for a lack of a better way to say it, not BSing you all the time, right? And really kind of being honest with you and being transparent that way. And so I think it can be a good thing and a strength in many, many instances. What can you tell us about our guest today?
Today's guest is Jason Shron. He's the president of Rapido Trains Inc, which is Canada's largest manufacturer of high-end model trains and accessories. Rapido has operations in both North America and the UK, and it really started with Jason's lifelong love of trains. He even left his PhD program in art history to make trains full-time. And really fun fact, he has a 20-foot section of a real train in his basement.
That is wild to me on a bunch of different levels, but also, I guess that's just there forever now, right? When you sell this house, you get a train in your basement as well. So whatever the case, in this conversation, really enjoyed talking to Jason. You can really hear his passion come through. And we talked about how being obsessively honest really helped him build a loyal fan base and get this 81% email open rates. I mean, that's just off the charts in terms of what we're looking at here, right? Why embracing your inner nerd can be your marketing superpower. And we talk about the marketing magic of knowing exactly who you're talking to and what they care about. So let's go to Jason as he shares how procrastination led him to start his model train business.
It's a company built on passion. So I started it 20 years ago, just over 20 years ago. And it was I'm a model railroader. I love model trains. I love real trains. And I wanted to make the trains that I wanted. I was actually doing a PhD in art history in Birmingham, England. And while I enjoyed living in England, I was not in the career path. I just want to make model trains all day. So while procrastinating for my PhD, I started this model train business on the side. And it's very funny when we delivered the first big shipment a couple of years later, and I got my first $10,000 check from a customer. I took a model train and sent it to my PhD supervisor in England and said, "Here's my thesis. I officially withdraw from the program, and I make model trains now." And it's that passion. That's being a modeler my whole life since I loved trains since I was 2. We were building model trains since I was 4 in the family. I got the bug from my father. Of course, he just was doing some fun thing with his kids, whereas I've taken it to a whole career and a whole life. And that passion and desire for my own trains that make me happy and make me go, wow, was a way people saw that. And over the last 20 years, it's tuned into their passion because it's not a corporate thing. It's a company run almost entirely by model railroaders. I've hired one after another every few years. We've increased our stable of different model train nerds to design our products. So now that we're a team of mostly model train freaks who design stuff that we want. And so our customers want them to, because we're thinking along the same lines.
So was this in your purview just in terms of like how big this has gotten? Was this something you thought like, yeah?
Oh, I had no clue.
Yeah.
I had no idea it would get so big, especially like this, when we expanded into the UK, it's like, wow, I have a British company now. This is cool. Last time I was here as a student and I've got a British company, but it's amazing how large it's grown. I think growing has brought challenges. I think any company who's experienced growth, especially during COVID, we had rapid growth as rapid for Rapido because people found they had tons of free time and nothing to do. So they got out the old model train set from the top shelf in the cupboard and said, yeah, this is pretty old. Let's see what the hobby is offering now, 30 years later. Holy crow, you got sound now in models, and you've got details specific to one railroad in your models, and all this cool, like the hobby's advanced. So we just could not keep anything on the shelf during COVID. At the same time, we had tremendous logistics issues of getting goods overseas because of all the delays around the world. So managing that growth has actually been a challenge. It's a good challenge to have. I'd rather manage growth than manage a shrinking company. But it definitely brings us challenges because, there's whether it's you can't keep up with the customer service emails or whether it's you just can't keep up with the product and you have to design more product. So I've had to hire 3 of my 6 senior designers have been hired in the last 2 years.
How big is the company now just in terms of staff?
We've got about 30 in North America and there's another dozen or so in the UK. So we treat them as 2 separate companies.
Sure, yeah.
So we actually have a separate UK constant contact account. We're not going to talk. They won't like if I talk about that here because they're very proud of their constant contact. They want to talk about that. They'll talk about that one.
Well, so it's interesting. We have some parallel paths here as actually Constant Contact is we're doing a big push into the UK this year too. So look at that. I'm curious, I guess, what is it about trains then? What is it about model trains and what is it that kind of gets you in there, right?
Well, it started when I was 2. I live in Canada. I was born in Montreal in Quebec, and then we moved to Toronto. It's about 330 miles away. And we would go back. I mean, we moved in July 77, went back in September 77. I was 2.5. And my first memory is on the return trip in September 77. We're on this train called the Turbo. It was an amazing high-tech train of the future that, of course, never lasted because, often these high-tech trains of the future don't last very long. But I fell in love with it. And I remember I wanted to go. You can look over the shoulder of the engineer out the front. It was open up. It was a really cool design. And I wanted to go, but I was afraid of getting lost. My father's like, go ahead. It was like 20 feet away, right? But I was going to get lost. And I got up, I walked like 6 feet, know where it was, sat down and started crying. My father picked me up, took me to the front of the train, looked out the front. And ever since then, I've been obsessed with trains. I think I can tell a whole bunch of scientific reasons why I like trains, why guys like trains, almost always guys. It's very much guys. I'm also a huge Doctor Who nerd, and Doctor Who used to be a guy thing, but now for the last 20 years, it's now an everybody thing. Whereas trains hasn't really broken that glass ceiling to appeal to the masses. It's still a guy thing. I think it's the same part of our brains that have Star Trek facts and figures, baseball facts and figures, train facts and figures, right? You have to, women are doing amazing things all the time with all their brain, and us guys, we have like a lot of spare room, right? So we fill it with train facts and figures and stuff like that. I could give it like a scientific reason, but I'd much rather it's a passion thing. You become totally in love with this mode of transportation. It's more than just like toasters. And some people don't get it. They say, well, why aren't you in love with toasters? Why aren't you in love with ovens? Why aren't you in love with fridges? Well, it's not. It's more than that. There's a whole culture around trains. And there's a history of the trains being an innovative technological development of the 19th century that we're still using every day today. We have the technology shifted in the 20th century, but the essential basics of the steel wheels, steel rails hasn't changed since the 19th century. It's tied together America. It's tied together Canada. Trains really built both countries, which is something special. But then there's also the memory of riding these trains back and forth to see my grandparents, see my auntie, and see all the other people in Montreal. And so I associate specifically that route from Toronto, Montreal, and those trains with very, very warm, very wonderful memories and feelings. And so when I started the company, I was starting to make these trains, the trains that I rode. I would include stuff like the bathroom faucets. You can't see them unless you take the roof off the train and look down into the train car to see the bathroom, because there's no windows in the bathroom. In the bathroom, you've got toilet, you got faucets, you got a flusher pedal, everything, right? Because I wanted to recreate in miniature my memories. I mean, so the cafe car has little shelves that you can put sandwiches. Now, no one I know has put sandwiches in their shelves, but the shelves are there.
Yeah.
And the coffee pot is on the shelf of one of our cafe cars. There's a coffee pot on the shelf, and we're talking 1/87 scales. The coffee pot is like less than a 16th of an inch tall. All right. And it's cool. It's just cool. So that desire to recreate the whole thing. And I really went nuts over what's under the train. So train models over the last 100 years that model trains have been a thing. Underneath, people often just leave nothing there, or they put a couple of blobs of plastic and say, "Oh, it's dark, you can't really see it." But when I was a kid and I was like 3 feet tall, and the trains here in Canada, you could see all air conditioning, you could see air brake equipment, you could see water tanks, because we have so much snow up here, or we used to, we don't have as much anymore, that the snow, if you close that off, it would just all get caught up in there, and then the train would just stop working. So they left everything open. And so when you're 3 feet tall and you see all this hardware, I was fascinated by it, to the point where I was on the train once when I was 5 or 6, and the train broke down. And so I had 2 hours to kill at the station with our train parked there. And I asked my mom for a pen and paper, and I was drawing the stuff under the train. So that, because my brother and I would draw trains. So our models had all this stuff, and they still do today. And people who weren't used to it said, "Why are you wasting money making all these pipes and things like that under the train?" I said, "Well, if you're making a model of a Jaguar, you wouldn't open up the hood and have nothing in there. Have a Jaguar engine in there, because that's what makes it." Well, if you don't have all that air conditioning, heating equipment, all that stuff underneath, then it's just a box on wheels, right? So that to me was just important. And so some people didn't get it, but most people got it. And so we became known as this crazy guy with this crazy company that does details that no one ever thought they needed. And we always joke that our models look best if they derail and fall down an embankment, because then
you see all the things. That's amazing. So I could definitely see, I'm curious. I mean, I don't know a lot about the industry, right? But as someone who does get obsessive about things, that attention to detail, I can see how that can be attractive to somebody. Are there other businesses that follow suit? Like, or are you the only one that kind of goes into it with that meticulously?
There are. So we sort of broke the mold, but we've got a lot of friendly competitors, I'll call them, who pick that up. Certainly, as far as locomotives are concerned, I'd say we're at the same level as a lot of our competitors, but maybe two or three of our competitors. It's not a very big
sure.
But when it comes to passenger cars, no one's ever come close. They look at the balance sheet, they look at the profit and loss statement, they say, "I got to pay how much for pipes?"
Yeah, I get you.
You have to have someone who's so nuts about this stuff to want to spend the money to make all those little details that you hardly can see.
Well, I was going to say, you got to have a very particular group of clientele, right, that share that same passion that you do. I'm curious, on the business side of things, was business in the family? Are you the first one to own your own business? Like, did you think you'd ever own your own business? Tell me a little bit about that.
I had no clue. In fact, I started seeing a business coach about 5 years ago, and the business coach, actually 6 years ago now, and the business coach, I said, "I can't even read a balance sheet. I never know how to, I didn't go to business school." And I said, "It must be like, for you to teach someone like me, it must be very frustrating because I don't know anything." He says, "I love people like you because you just started the business and did it, and you're doing it, and you're running a successful business. People who come out of business school, like, they know how to do everything, but they may not have actually ever run a business before." So I really just figured it all out as I went. I mean, my father, he's a phenomenal salesperson. He's most of his life worked for other people. So I get my sales ability from my father. He's very, very talented. My father, when we left Montreal, he left his job in Montreal and he sold his briefcase on the metro, on the subway. So his last day of work, he's coming home, he's got an empty briefcase, and he sold it to somebody on the subway. Like, that's my father, right? He can sell ice cubes to the Inuit. But so I have that naturally from my dad, but we have no real history of business in the family. And I'm following my father. I'm only the second person that's really gone off on my own that way. My brother has since gone off on his own running a business, but I have no business training. I have graphic design training from universities. So I knew how to do graphic design and use Adobe Creative Suite and whatever else. So I could actually design stuff, which is helpful. But I've just figured it out. And so I've started the UK company much more recently, 2020 is when we really got that off the ground, and versus 2004. And I find the UK company is actually much more smoothly run because I could come to it and say, "Okay, we have to do this, and this. All the things I didn't do back then. All right, we have to set up a robust system for taking orders that will grow." Whereas the Canadian company keeps on having to go to a new system because our old system just comes life expired. So as the company grows, it just can't handle the volume of sales that we're doing. So we've started the UK company on a bit of a firmer footing because I'd already had like 16 years experience at that point. But when I started, no, I had no business experience at all.
Wow. So, well, then did you go into this, any doubts coming into your mind as you're starting to do this? Like, where are you? Yeah.
make a small fortune in model railroading, you have to start with a large fortune. That's and I didn't have a large fortune. So I raised up 75 grand from my uncle, my father-in-law, my father, 25 each. And I had a financing partner in the original days. And let's put it this way, before we delivered our first product, we were $500,000 in debt, right? Because it really does. You're paying your tooling costs like a year before you ship the goods. That's where you make the actual steel molds, where you inject the model train plastic into the molds or the die cast parts. And then you're paying for the molds. You're paying for production. You're going through months of production. And then you're waiting 2 months for it to arrive and get laid out and shipped out. And then 30 days later, after your customer got it for 30 days, then you get paid. So you have to finance the business for such a long time. And that's actually the biggest challenge, I think, for anyone interested in getting into this sort of business, is when you're making things, you have to finance them, and you have to finance the tooling, you have to finance that production. And it's a huge process, right? So that's been an enormous challenge all the way through. It still is a challenge today.
How does it feel to be where you are today? And did you ever think, wow,
Honestly, for me, I'm so focused on the next project and the current fire I'm putting out. It's hard to step back and say, whoa, I've changed the hobby. Great. Like, I just don't think like yesterday, I spent the whole afternoon trying to get a clicking sound onto an engine, right? So I'm on the phone, I'm on WhatsApp with the sound supplier. There's no spitter. It's a valve that takes the humidity out of the airlines. It goes tick, 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 tick. There's no spitter. I put the spitter on. And hours working on a spitter valve. And so on the one hand, I'm running this big company. I've got a whole team. On the other hand, I'm the one who's like, where's the spitter valve? No, that's an air filter. It's the wrong valve. We need the spitter valve. So I'm sort of caught up in it. So yeah, I always say there's the view at 0, there's the view at 5,000 feet, the view at 10,000 feet. So I've got the view for the business at 10,000 feet going forward. I haven't really taken the time, I should at some point, to look back. I'm only look back to say, oh, we screwed up there. We got to fix that. And here we are. I think that what's actually helped us to grow, and Constant Contact's actually played a big role in that, is that because I have no business experience. Well, now I do. 20 years running this business. But before that, I'm just a model train guy, making model train. So I would share, as I was starting this journey, 2006 is when we delivered our first ready to run models, or early late 2005. So 2006 is when I started with Constant Contact. And I started these newsletters as a way of sharing with the customers what we're doing. So, all right, we're now injecting the models. Okay, we've run into a problem. The problem is this. All right, we just delivered products. And guess what? A whole bunch of them have a problem. This is the problem. And we showed that problem. I would show that to I say we, that was just me back then. I would show the problem to the customers and say, I'm trying to fix it now. Right. And so at one time I had to make new shells for a train because I got the letters backwards on one side. I was making the artwork. I flipped it and I forgot to flip it back. Right. So it's Illinois Central Railroad on one side and it was Central Illinois Railroad on the other. So it's a collector's item now if you can find a Central Illinois baggage car. And by being totally honest, that got people on side because they saw, oh my God, this company, whoever they are, Rapido, their new company, and we're still by 20 years later, we're still the same way. If we screw up, we just tell people, okay, we screwed up here, here, and here, and this is fixing this one. And this one we can't fix because it's a model. And the real one, it would have cost us $100,000 to fix that little tiny thing. So you just gonna have to live with the little tiny thing is going to be there. I mean, we have to, but we explain the economics to our customers and they understand it. And the vast majority of reasonable people, and they get it. Right. So even an example, when I was at one point looking at future options for the business, had a financing partner, we're moving on to end the partnership. And I meet with my lawyer and one of his team. And they're saying, well, do you want to bring the company public? And the team member says, oh, you don't want to report to boards. And then my lawyer says, you haven't read his newsletters. Jason tells more to the public than most CEOs tell their boards. And that's just always been the way, just share what's going on.
Well, I'm curious though, where does that come from? Because I would argue, you're doing back then when you started something that even works really great today. That's a way to do. So I guess, where did that even come from? Why would you do that?
Because I didn't like the idea of spin. I just like the idea of being honest.
Okay.
Again, most of our customers are very, very reasonable. If you're honest, and it's so we had a project that leapfrogged another project. So the orders for the first project, the people who ordered the first project were very upset. Why is this one being released first? I've had this on order for 2 years. So I said, because no one's ordered that. Right? So they've all ordered this. This is going to make money that will allow us to pay our bills so that we can make the thing that you want.
Yeah.
Right? And we're just being totally, totally straight with the customers. And that's the sort of a policy I've maintained all the way through. Now, as we have more and more projects, it's sometimes more difficult to have me directly involved in that communication. I have a team now, but we still take the same principle, is that we want to tell people what's going on. And look, there will be people who are not reasonable. We have a customer who's upset that one model, the interior light bulbs don't match the position on the real train. And say, that's because it's this tall.
Yeah.
Okay. The train is 2 inches tall. We can't have the 72 light bulbs in the real train. We're going to have like 6 LEDs and you're going to be happy with that. So there's a reasonability test. Okay. But that honesty, I think, is very important. And the newsletters are a great way. It's a direct way to communicate with the end customer like that.
So yeah, how much do you attribute that approach, right? That mentality to the success you've had?
Oh, it's a huge element to it. And I mean, our open rate on our newsletters is 80%.
I have that written down in your click-through rates. So we'll dig into that a little bit here, but that's insane. Particularly when you think, if you're looking, right, averages, no one wants to be average, but if you're wondering where the average is, right, we're probably these days in like the 32% range, right? So 81%, okay, impressive on its own. When we start thinking about click-through rates, you're probably, again, averages 3%, 25%. The hell's going on, Jason? What are you doing?
A lot of our customers, by the way, they don't click through because they take our newsletter and they go to the hobby shop and they order the goods from the hobby shop across the counter. We're a very old-fashioned hobby, okay, very old-fashioned industry. So, I mean, up until recently, we were getting orders by fax. In fact, 2018, we almost lost an order because the store hand wrote the order and included it on a piece of lined paper with beautiful penmanship, I might add, with his check. And my controller just threw out the envelope. It was an order for $100,000 of locomotives behind the check, right? We're a very, very old-fashioned industry. So a lot of our customers actually read the newsletter and then go to the hobby shop. Our stores and distributors are 90% of our sales. Some model train companies have shown up in the last 20 years after, and they're going after that direct customer because they want that extra margin. If you're giving 40, 50% off to your distributors or to hobby shops or 30% off, whatever it is, that's margin you're not getting.
Yeah.
And so people have gone into the hobby and gone that direct approach, and they're wondering why their sales are lagging. Whereas we take the approach that, no, we want our models to get in as many places as possible, so we support the hobby shops. So yeah, I think that all of that combines. I'm explaining my low click-through rate of 25%. That's what.
Yeah, low. I know. Like, yeah, please. You gotta figure something out, man. This isn't working. Like, well, so I have to imagine, as you didn't have any business experience. I mean, did you have any marketing experience?
No, not really. I mean, not really. No. One of the things that we did from the start is silly videos.
Okay, interesting.
We were recording. There's a locomotive that we weren't happy with all the sounds out there because they always recorded a locomotive sitting in the yard and going blah, 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 blah. It wasn't doing anything. So what we did is we hired a railroad for the day and we hauled a dead locomotive, which weighs 130 tons, up a hill. And then we stuck a little Zoom recorder on the roof and we just recorded what it did. So I had this video of me on the roof of this. Okay, now this is a movie. I'm duct taping bits of the engine down because it's rattling. I didn't like the rattle, right? So duct tape. So there's this video of me duct taping stuff on the roof. And then it just got more and more ridiculous. The videos, they would just get very, very silly. And there's a share of customers who think, oh, stop the silly videos. We don't care. But actually, there's a lot of customers love the fact that we're obviously having fun. And I think that when people see that we're having fun, it brings joy.
Yeah.
We're so used to it. If I look at all the emails we get, I'd say 85% of them are complaints, right? Because who emails? This is broken. This isn't working. I don't like this. You got this wrong. But it's like 1-2% of our customers. The rest of the people are very happy. If they're happy, they don't email. Sometimes we get some beautiful emails. We got an email from a customer once who had suffered a very deep personal tragedy that our models helped them through it. And that was, to me, like, it just, we were his happy place that he could go to while dealing with that personal tragedy. So sometimes we get emails like that. And then I shared to the whole team, look, this is amazing.
Right? Yeah.
The customer, I'm so happy. And we've had some good feedback. But people see that we're having fun. And I think a lot of people, especially through COVID and after COVID, we've gotten really nasty, really bitter, really grumpy. I think a lot of people forgot over the course of a couple of years how to interact with other people, and having a company that is just clearly having a good time. I'm pushing 50 and a lot of my team, they're the millennials or they're Gen Xers. And so a lot of the stuff we include with our models and our videos are all cultural references that we get. And so you get other people who get our references, and we have so much fun with it. All right. And we will rip off anything in our videos. We'll do a parody of this, that, or the other. And I grew up watching, Monty Python and SCTV, Saturday Night Live. So I have that element in my past, and we try and bring that joy. And right before COVID, I hired this new guy coming into work. He's going to fix models, right? His name is Jeremy. He's going to fix models. And so, okay. And he says, by the way, I do some video work. I said, sure, no problem. He's one of those guys that as soon as I saw him, you probably employ people. You see him for the interview and I'm hiring that guy. It's like,
oh yeah. Yeah. Somebody. So yeah.
You can tell just through the window, I'm hiring that guy. Right. So I know he's hiring. And then, so he says, I do some videos. So he says, COVID has now started. Everyone's locked down. Everyone's working from home. He says, I'm going to go pick some models up, working from home, and I'll do a video from home. Okay. He does. I've put up a draft. Go have a look at the draft. I looked at the draft. I said, Jeremy, you're fired from our work department. You're now our full-time video guy. I think he took a lightsaber and cut the engine in half or something like that. It was such an amazing video. And so he's now done 250 odd videos since then. We try and do one every week or two, and they're funny, they're cheeky, they're not serious at all. We one time made track. So we did a test. We said, will this track be strong enough? And we ran over it with a real train. Guess what? The track failed. It was molten crap. It was failed, right? So he said, this failed completely. This is a terrible test. Do not buy the track.
So you mentioned you're doing this on your own to begin, and then you start to build the team. So who's involved with helping you do the marketing now? How big of a team do you have there?
Marketing team is a core group of people. We have Natasha, who just started last year as our marketing manager because I was doing too much. I needed someone to take a lot of my work. We have Jeremy, who does the videos. We have Jordan, who does all the social media. We have Bobby, who does our newsletters. And we have Priyanka, who does our website. So we're a small marketing team amongst a larger team. No one has one particular job. I'll review newsletter and I'll edit it, or I'll write part of the newsletter, or Natasha, who's the manager, but she'll design labels for our mystery boxes that we sell to customers, things like that. So we all pitch in different ways. It's good. It's a good team. We've grown. I mean, Jordan is the oldest marketing person. He's been with us since 2015.
I guess, is there a marketing meeting? How does this all come together? Do you guys get together to plan things? What does that process look for you, and what are you trying to do?
Every week we meet on a Monday afternoon, and we just go over what's going on, what we're doing. We plan our newsletters. Bobby then goes and does the newsletters. We try and tie together we bring in a project manager and say, okay, we're launching your project. What do we talk about this? What do we say about this? And what are the three most important things of this model? Why should people buy, this model? This is a podcast. We're holding a model here, right? This is a model. Why should people buy this model? Actually, this is actually from 10 years ago, but it's still cool. Now, in this case, they're going to buy this model because nobody's ever made one. So, of course, you're going to buy ours or you buy nothing. So there you go. Then we have to convince people why they want to buy this model, right? Because it's a great model. But in some cases, we're bringing out a model that's been released 3 times before by other manufacturers. And we have to tell people, why are you buying our model? And so it's talking with the project manager is a train nut who's been buried into this model for the last 8 months designing it. Right. So it's well, it's really cool. Oh, well, actually, we have a lighting here that no one's ever done. We have the control stand, the little dials on the control stand in real life are only this big. They let up. All right. I said, well, that's a selling point. Okay. So we recorded the sounds ourselves on the tourist railroad in New York State. That's a selling point. Right. I mean, these are all good things that we put. So we make sure that there's communication between the guys designing the models and the marketing, the marketing, Bobby, Jordan, and I were train nuts. Right. So often it's Bobby says, well, you didn't talk about this. Okay. So talk about this. It's okay. Bobby points out, who didn't design the product, well, you forgot the biggest selling feature. So then Bobby will just throw it in there. I wish we could say we're totally organized and we're corporate. We're not.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're not. Every product launch is a scramble at Rapido because we just, why don't we make this also in another scale? The launch is next week. Well, let's try. And then everybody scrambles so that we can launch the product in 2 scales instead of 1. And then we end up increasing our sales by 35%.
Well, it sounds like you're in this unique situation where in many instances, I mean, would you say that you are your target customer in many ways?
Yeah, we're making the stuff for ourselves.
Yeah, interesting.
And recognizing who our target customers are. I mean, we know our demographics. Our demographics primarily are men, 99.9% men, right? So our marketing is aimed towards men because these are our customers. We'll often say, well, our manuals are full of humor. Like the beginning of it, a lot of people buy model trains and then stick them in their boxes under the model train, in the crawl space, in the basement, in the attic, until they build their model railroad. They never build the model railroad, and they end up dying with a whole bunch of beautifully preserved model trains. And then all trains go to a store and they're sold in the estate sale. And then you're buying a model train that was like released 40 years ago and it's brand new in the box. Right? So our manual actually says, hi. If this is the year 2073, I'm just up with this, and it's missing a doodad, you're out of luck. We can't help you. We're all dead. So that's how we introduce our manuals to our customers. So we bring all that into it. Definitely bring all that into it.
That's amazing.
So you need three things to be a big spender to get really serious on model railroading and become a big spender. You need time, space, and money. Okay, so our typical demographic, they tend to be dads. Okay. And when do they have time, space, and money? Well, it's very simple: when the kids move out. Because now you're not taking them in Canada. We all go to ice hockey practice. You're not going to hockey practice. You're not going to baseball, soccer, football, whatever. You're not schlepping them here, schlepping them there. They've moved out. So now their stuff's not all over your basement anymore. So you've got room in your basement, or your spare room is now a spare room because Junior's moved out. Right. And then you're not spending money on the hockey equipment and the vacations to Disney World and this, that, and the other. So you've got the three things that you need of time, space, and money. So it's generally in early to mid 50s is when suddenly every year there's more people turning 55. So every year there's more people becoming model railroaders, right? Because I've got time. I'm feeling it now. I've got one kid off university. I've got one kid is graduating high school soon, and one kid he's in grade 7. So he's more self-sufficient. And suddenly I'll have an evening. It's like, I have 2 hours with nothing to do. I'm going to work on my trains. I'm talking to you from my basement where I'm building a model railroad that's 12 by 40 feet, 5 feet long. It's going to take me another 30 years to build this, even with all the time I now have, because I'm building that route from Toronto to Montreal that I rode when I was a kid. So I'm my customer. Now, I don't make a lot of money off of me because I don't pay a whole lot for my models. But it's like Jordan says, we got him. I've ordered 8 of the new dome car. Jordan, you don't pay for the new dome car. So I don't care that you've ordered 8 of the new dome car. I don't know who bought the new dome car.
Well, so that's actually a good lead. Like, so when you start thinking about success for the business, and particularly where you are now and you're expanding and you're doing all of that, I guess, like, how do you start? What's most important to you? I mean, I guess sales is the easy answer, right? But is there a particular thing that you're looking at in terms of measurement?
So the most important thing, in terms of gross sales and making a profit, obviously any business owner, that's what's important. I'm not keen on shrinking. So I try to move mountains so that we always grow a little bit every year. And so for the last 9 years, we've grown a little bit every year. Sometimes a lot. During COVID, we grew by 60% one year because it's like, woo! Because all the stuff that was delayed in 2021 showed up in 22 along with 2022 sales. So we had like 2 years worth of sales. It's like, whoa, we've grown a lot. That was, and then you show that, and then your accountant says, "This is going to happen every year." No, this is not going to happen.
Anomaly. Yeah.
This is a one-time deal. I'll take it. But actually, the most important thing for me is having customers love their models. If I've got customers, that email a guy who was really upset and had a personal tragedy and was so have found solace in his models. I've had other emails similar where someone said, "I've wanted this my whole life." I mean, we know people who've changed their whole model railroad because we brought out the model they never thought they would get. Right. So now they got the model that they really wanted. They've sort of sold everything else and they've gone back to basics, starting again because they finally got the model they actually really wanted. So when I hear stories like that, that to me is what I do this for. I do this for where that connection with my customers, where I'm getting the models. I never thought that I'd ever have a model of this train I'm holding right now called an LRC. It's a Canadian only train that only ran in 2 provinces in Canada. We're not talking about a big popular train. This is not Union Pacific. This is not Pennsylvania Railroad. I never thought one of those would be made, and it's been made. And similarly, Jordan has been obsessed with an Amtrak train called the Turboliner, which ran only along the Hudson River Valley. It ran from New York to Albany and New York to Montreal. That was where it ran. So occasionally to Toronto. That's it. He wore me down after like 5 years. We finally produced it, and it was very successful. And you had people coming and saying, "I've always wanted this. Like, I can't believe a manufacturer made this. This is unbelievable." We're now making subway trains that people are saying, "Someone's making a subway train. No one's ever made a Toronto subway. I can't believe this." So like, that's just cool to be able to have that connection. That connection to me is if I'm connecting with people And one of those emails makes up for the 100 emails. Oh, I can't find my part. The grab iron broke.
It's amazing how meaningful those things are. And, well, so my follow-up here then too, right? Because I think there's a couple of things that you also do in this journey that you have here that are interesting. I mean, you've written a book, so I'm curious about the impact that has had. But along with that, you also, if I'm not mistaken, you were the owner of a popular discussion group as well, right? Is that true?
Yeah, it started out, it was popular. I think that social media has taken over most of the job, but that led to Rapido. So I was on Usenet. Those of us of a certain age remember Usenet, the early days of the internet, when you would just talk and text with people on your dial-up modem. And it was a company was bringing out a model of a Toronto train, but they were a California company, so they measured the train in Los Angeles and then just painted it up in Toronto colors, so it wasn't accurate for Toronto. And I was quite upset by that. And someone said on this Usenet group, well, just be happy they're painting it in Toronto colors. And I said, that's it. There's got to be a forum here for people who actually want accurate Canadian models. So I started this, what was a Yahoo group, is now groups.io, about that sort of thing. And I remember the first post in 2002 is, okay, here's a new group. It's about Canadian models. What do you want? I want a turbo. I want an LRC. I want blue and yellow equipment. And like the first three models we made, the turbo, the blue and yellow, the LRC. Like I manufactured the stuff that was all my wanted list from 2002. We've made it all now, which is great. But yeah, now I think that the social media, there are now more places for people to congregate online. So the group is not hugely as important as it was. However, I actually built a full-size train in my basement. So I'm talking to you from my model train room, which is a conventional model train room. But if you were to walk down the hall from my model train room and go down the stairs, there's a real train there. It's a 20-foot slice of a real train. I had a financing partner and the partnership was ending. I kept the train in the basement quiet publicly until I knew that I owned my company again. And once I was my wife and I owned the company ourselves, I released that into the world. And I was on NBC, I was on Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, I was on Discovery Channel, all these different places, Ripley's Believe It or Not, about the guy who built this train in his basement. I got to tell you, that did, and it was a constant contact email that I sent out in January 2013. I was like this new feeling of freedom that I had. And I sent this out saying, by the way, I've been working on this for the last 5 years. And I put a video on YouTube and I linked to the video. It was a very short email and it went mad. The video had 500,000 views almost. And in my industry, that's viral for model trains, and that helped the marketing of the company a lot because it's like, holy crap, this guy is so serious about his love for trains that he built a full-size train in his basement. And I would get people coming up to me and saying, I was able to get my model train room from my wife, who didn't want me to have that room because I showed her your video and said, look how crazy I could be. And she said, okay, fine. You can have the guest room, build your model train. Fine. Just don't build a full-size train in my basement.
A cautionary tale is what we have here. Amazing.
Another thing about the constant contact emails that I don't know who's listening to this, but I don't filter so much in the sense that our emails are sometimes 3,000 words long. So when you've got an audience that respects you and wants to hear what you have to say, then just take your time and say it. And so we'll often have essays, either I'll write something or, one of my employees will write something. We had a summer intern who wrote, a young guy, he's a guy in his early 20s, loves model trains, how he got into it and showing him photos of his models and things like that. And people love that stuff. So we have a few people who skim the newsletter and just click on the new announcements. And there are other people who read the whole thing, 3,000 words sometimes, if not more, top to bottom. And that's the connection. And then when I meet these people, it shows they know us. They know me. They know Bobby because he writes the newsletter. They know Bill because he designs the models, or Dan or whoever. They know our team. And that's wonderful.
So I guess the question is how did you land on that approach? We can start there, or we can start with why did you even come to Constant Contact to begin with? You mentioned 2006. I'm curious what led to that decision to be you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do this because I want to, I don't know, you tell me what you wanted to try to do, but then I'd love to know how you got and landed on that approach.
I wanted to talk to my customers. So I found when I went to a hobby shop, we had amazing conversations. And sometimes someone would come angry about something. And they'd come to the hobby shop and they've got they're so angry because the model didn't work. It's so angry. And then we talk and I say, well, okay, number one, I'm new at this, which I was. Number two, no one's ever done this model, this kind of detail before. Number three, this is how we can fix that. And we're fixing it for the next run. So by the time they left the hobby shop, they weren't angry anymore because they met me. And so as a real guy, and he's just like me, he loves trains. He's doing his best. And so I thought there's got to be a way to communicate that with people. And so I looked on the internet. I don't even remember we were using Google back then. It might have been Yahoo or whatever, right? And I went and I looked for some way to do email newsletters. And I found Constant Contact. And I mean, that's now 18 years, 19 years with Constant Contact. So it was the right move. It was absolutely the right move.
So how did you land on this approach then, right? Like, so you mentioned, 3,000 words in there. I've looked at a few examples. It does have those things, right? It has all the things that if I'm into that thing, like I want to see, right? Did you trial and error this? Is that how you always done it?
It's just do it and see what happens. Certainly, Bobby and Natasha, who are more marketing experience, are saying like, okay, we need to sometimes, change that around. And maybe we don't need to have so much information. They tried at one point. They tried to make it more simple with information. And I just said, it's not working for me. And I said, the people who don't want to read the 3,000 words, they're just going to scroll anyway. So we don't have to cater to them. Like just electrons. Let's just keep the essays as we have them. And the people who want them will want them. And there have been very personal emails. I mean, there was at one time my aunt died and I shared that. I just sent out an email. So that, or it was either my aunt or it was one of my employees passed away in 2016. It might have been that. It was someone died. And I just sent out an email saying, this has happened. We're devastated. And stop putting off your hobby. Everyone said, I'm honest with people. Other manufacturers don't do this. I know there's 100 boxes in your basement that you haven't opened yet. Go open them. Stop buying for a couple of months. Have the manufacturer telling you that. Stop buying for a couple of months. Go play with your trains because you might not be here next week, right? And that honesty and that rawness, it reached people. And I think the emails that we've sent out that have had that honesty to them, or especially when something raw has happened, when Mike passed away or whatever, those speak to people the most. And that we get the most positive feedback on those. We're connecting with other people's pain and we're saying, we hear you and we feel it too. And here's one thing you can do about it. Stop diddling around and go and enjoy your hobby.
So when you think about Constant Contact and your usage of that and how you've been doing things with that, I guess, what has the overall kind of Constant Contact experience been like for you as a user?
Constant Contact has been great for us. We've had a great experience with it. I like the fact that we've got the different mailing lists, which is good. And what we do, one of the ways we have an 81% open rate is about once every 6 months. Sometimes I'm lazy to do once every year. I will output all of our did not opens, into an Excel spreadsheet. And I will put them into a column. And then I'll take the last 6 newsletters and I'll put each one into a column in Excel. And there's a formula I found by Googling of how to find a value that is the same across all 6 columns. So if we find an email address that hasn't opened the last 6 newsletters, we go in and we just take them out, delete them.
Oh, okay.
Usually it's one of 2 things. Person's got a new email and never unsubscribed their old one, or a person died. Those are generally the 2 reasons why people don't open the newsletters for Rapido, because a model railroad passion is generally a lifelong passion. You don't suddenly stop being interested in model trains. It generally goes, you're there. You've got the an Amtrak logo on your tombstone, right? So by doing that, we remove, every time we do this, it's always 800 to 1,200 people that come off the list. So our list will bloat up. And then our open rate starts to go down, 79, 78, 77. Get rid of the people that haven't opened last 6. Now we're back up to 80, 81, 82. And then we do the same thing again every 6 to 12 months. And it's a useful exercise because you've got people who are, saying I have a big mailing list doesn't mean anything.
Right.
Saying 81% of people I send it to open it, I'd rather have 81% of 10,000. We have 14,000 people right now and change. I have 81% as opposed to 3% of 2 million people. I'd much rather have the 81% opening up.
Actually, let's talk about the email list a little bit more. Like, how are you growing that list? How do you actually get people on? Are there any strategies that you're in play?
So we have a link all over our website. We have the old newsletters are on our website. So we link to them you can go to visit our old newsletters, and there's a link to join it, to subscribe. And we use all over the top of our website and bottom of our website, both have links to join our newsletter. That's the best way to do it. We find just through our website. We tried one time an experiment. We had an ad in a printed magazine and we gave them a link to subscribe to our newsletter. And we looked at if we had a bump. We had like a bump of 6 people. 100,000 people saw the ad and 6 people subscribed. So that didn't work. So that's not worthwhile. But just put it on our website. We'll share our newsletters on social media and have people give them a link there to sign up. We're growing it steadily. The UK group has been growing much more quickly because they're newer.
You also do something interesting from a business perspective, and maybe you can talk through this a little bit, but I have to imagine you do this maybe through email as well in terms of getting people there, but you do pre-orders for things.
Yes, it's all pre-order based business. It's all pre-order.
Yes. So this is something I'm aware of, like that a lot of, I want to say like coaching or internet courses, like those types of, a lot of businesses like operate that way, right? They get people pre-ordered, then they create the thing before they do it. I guess what led you down that path? And then I have to assume when you're doing the pre-orders, you're using email to drive people to that. Am I correct in that? Or
Oh, absolutely. 100%. 100%. In fact, that constant contact is the best way for us to get people to come to our website. With an open rate, a click-through rate of 25%, that's what people coming to our website and visiting our website and whether they're pre-ordering with us or what they're doing is they're looking at the product and they go to their hobby shop and pre-order from the hobby shop. But pre-ordering is essential. Model railroading today, the industry, it's not a one-size-fits-all. You can't take a generic boxcar, generic locomotive, and just paint it up in a bunch of railroads. That's what it was 35, 40 years ago. Today, you've got Union Pacific had these details. Burlington Northern had these details. Western Pacific had these details. Southern Pacific had these details. It's not one size fits all. So you can't just make, I'm going to make 300 of everything when actually you didn't realize that actually you could sell 900 of the UP and 100 of the Western Pacific. You can't predict what the sales are going to be. So really from very early on, 2007 or 8, went mainly to pre-orders. There was pre-orders from the start, but then especially as the economy tanked in 2008 and 9, we definitely had to go to pre-orders because we just had to. We couldn't afford to make stock. And so by going to pre-orders, now this is the hobby has been conditioned where we know about that. So if we get orders for 1,000, we make 1,010, maybe 1,020. If we're feeling generous, we'll make 1,100. But we think that it's going to sell a lot later on. But often we will sell out before it arrives. So the hobby shops may have stock, but we'll often sell out before it arrives. And it's every financial controller's dream is an empty warehouse.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
It's like, you want the goods to come in, and they're all sold, send them out the door. There have been times, especially towards the end of COVID, our inventory was one shelf. It was one shelf, multi-million-dollar company, and we had one shelf of stock, and that was left. We've decided to make a little bit more these days than we used to, just because as we're a growing company, we can benefit from those extra sales. But I'll tell you, the pre-orders can be 2-3 years, very common. The best case scenario is 8 months or a year, but often it's 2-3 years. Our record, I'm going to bring a locomotive that I've been showing to, because it's my voice and you can't see it. But this LRC engine I've been holding up over this course of this conversation, that was 8 years. I announced the product and I was still a very young company, had no capital. And it took 8 years for the company was big enough and I had enough capital and there were enough interest. And the only cancellations were from people who died. That was the only cancellations we got. I remember before we brought out a dining car, we'd made coaches, we'd made sleeping cars, we made lounge cars. And I got an email, Jason, 82 years old. My customers need somewhere to have dinner and I want to see it before I die.
Amazing.
And thankfully, we delivered the dining car the next year. He got his dining car, and all was well. But
finally, now,
with pre-orders, it could be a problem. Is that if it takes a little time and you're getting up there, you hope you get most of your models.
What would it be like trying to run your business without constant contact?
Oh, that would be very difficult. Having an email newsletter that tracks open rate and tracks clicks. That's very, very important. And without constant contact, it is our primary way to let people know about our products because they read it and then other people share it on the internet forums, the social media, et cetera, on Facebook. So it's our biggest tool, a more useful tool. So yeah, we couldn't do without it.
Well, friend, let's recap some items from that discussion. Number 1, create trust through transparency. Now, Jason's newsletters are long, raw, and unfiltered, and his audience loves him for it. He's also being honest about setbacks, and it actually ends up deepening customer loyalty. So I want you to think about how you can share the journey with your customers. How can you be more transparent? How are you thinking, and what actions are you taking to serve them better? Like Jason, you'll find that most times your customers are reasonable, and, well, when you run into trouble, also appreciate the honesty, which of course pays off in the long run in the loyalty that it creates. Number 2, meet your audience where they are. Rapido communicates across multiple channels, but knows that email and print are best for reaching its older, passionate customer base. Now, beyond that, the business really understands its customers too. Men in their 50s with time, space, and money. And so they know exactly how to appeal to this audience. How well do you know your customer? Where does your product or service fit into their everyday lives? Number 3, don't underestimate fun. Rapido's cheeky videos, humor-filled manuals, and team enthusiasm help them stand out in a niche market. And it keeps customers coming back. So let your passion shine through in the content that you create. At the end of the day, sales and marketing is all about that transference of passion from one person to another. So just do it and see what happens. So here's your action item for today. Try Constant Contact's Resend to Non-Openers feature on your next email campaign. Now, it didn't make the cut in this episode, but Jason credits this feature with significantly increasing open rates and making sure his passionate fans never miss an update. So give it a try the next time you're scheduling an email. As always, you'll find more details in the show notes. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Be a Marketer podcast. Please take a moment to leave us a review. Just go to ratethispodcast.com/BAM. Your honest feedback will help other small business marketers like yourself find the show. That's ratethispodcast.com/BAM. Well, friend, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and continued success to you and your business.